Well, if it's Friday morning, it's time for another episode of the About Mansfield Consumer Advice Series. And I am your host, Steve Casillo, and you are you. Appreciate you being here today. You are either watching this live right now on Facebook, or you are watching the video replay on Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn, or you're listening to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Whatever that is, we appreciate you being here today, because today, as we do with all of the Consumer Advice Series episodes, we give you 10-minute nuggets of information. 10 minutes. That's a coffee break. So if you're on your coffee break, we'll remind you when it's time to go back to work. Today is Friday, and as we do every Friday, we bring in Phillip Washington Jr. And Friday has become one of my favorite days of the week. Not only because the weekend's here, but because I get to spend time with free financial advice, and I get to spend time with Phillip.
Hey, I enjoy hanging out with you too, Steve.
I appreciate that. And so today the topic is podcasting, something you know a little bit about because you've got your own podcast, Wealth Building Made Simple. You have created what? 400, 500, 600 episodes?
Yeah, over 600. I think we're over 650.
Over 650 episodes. And this is a business that I've been in. I created my first podcast back in 2011. Took a little time off, and now back in it for the last 2.5 years. Today's topic, podcasting, creating the halo effect. And I'm just going to throw this out there. What the hell is the halo effect?
The halo effect, right? The halo effect is, in simple terms, the attraction magnet, right? So the halo is a symbol of enlightenment, or when you have a level of understanding where you know how to attract all good things into your life. And so if you are a really successful business person, you understand in the real world, like the non-digital world, your best clients, the best people who you hang around with, are people that have similar energy to you, right? We attract the people in our life who we hang out with, do business with, and all the kind of things. And so,
like a magnet, positive attracts positive, negative attracts negative.
Perfect.
Okay, that's why I'm the host.
Yeah, and actually, I think that technical. In the magnet is positive. I think positive repels positive, doesn't it? In a magnet.
Well, yeah.
Kind of opposites attract with a magnet.
I didn't do very well in science.
It's okay, but I understood what you were saying.
Yeah.
Yes. You attract positivity if you have positivity inside of you.
And there's one thing that you mentioned on your podcast, as I've mentioned in past episodes, I produce your podcast. I listen to your podcast every week. Actually, every day. And you had mentioned that the internet is, number one, the internet is the new world doing business versus the old world, and that the internet is going to amplify what you put out there, and describe what that means.
Yeah, so the internet is a new form of leverage.
Yeah.
So the internet leverages small amount of effort, big results. And so the Industrial Revolution, leverage was done through borrowing money. Now we live in a world of wash of debt, which is why everything's so expensive, and why business people are complaining to their bankers about 6 or 7% rates, which I'm like, that's normal rates. Like, normal rates are 6 or 7%. If you can't find an investment that can do better than 6 or 7%, then you probably shouldn't be in business in the first place, from my perspective. But the world's become spoiled because you're used to can just make money by borrowing cheaper and buying relatively cheap assets. Everything expensive. That game plan is done. So now you got to be a good operator. And so the new form of leverage is not being super smart. It's just saying, contextually, we live in a new world. Industrial Revolution, dying business model. The new world is everything's going digital, and so I have to wrap my business around digital, right? So that means if I want to reach more customers, like if you're a restaurant and you want to have any clients who are 40 and under, and you don't have content on Instagram, you don't exist.
Right.
Like, you definitely don't exist to 20-year-olds, right? But I mean, that's an example of like, and that's just Instagram. So we're talking about podcasting, which is like for the businesses that are doing extremely well, it's like the engine that creates all the content needed for social media in every aspect that turns on that magnet to attract the clients of the new digital age. And so it's a magnifier, like, because there's so few businesses doing it. The ones that do it get a disproportionate amount of the gains.
Right. And you talked about, okay, the magnetism that, and this just basically goes along with society in itself, that positivity in your personality attracts, or confidence attracts confident people. And that, again, is amplified by the internet, because you're putting it out there and it's going through, you're reaching more people than just walking into a room and impressing 100 people in a motivational speech. You're putting that out there, and now with the potential of reaching hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands with confidence.
And the most important part is it's the right people, right? So scientists, specifically like physicists, are becoming aware of like all this imaginary existence that's around us that we're not aware of, right? They used to call it the ether, now they call it quantum particles or something like that. Like, like there's these all around us, this imaginary energy that is the energy behind like attracting the people that we want, right? There's a invisible, right, attraction power. Gravity is the example of it for the solar system, and the internet is the physical version of that.
Yeah.
Where when you put out content, right, the reason why my big thing about people putting out content is do not worry about numbers is because we're already doing it anyway before you get on the internet. Then the internet is magnifying it. So there's very few places where even if you only get 100 views of your content, right, either on your podcast player download, on your YouTube channel, on your LinkedIn view, on your Facebook view, on your Instagram view, even if it's only 100 combined on all of them, that's 100 like-minded people who are interested in the content that you're looking at, which is 100 more than you would have got had you not put it out there, right? So imagine when it compounds and gets bigger and bigger. But I mean, that's still like, and it's scalable, right? Because like if you wanted to reach 100 in all the different platforms, you may have had to do multiple talks, multiple door knocks, right? Multiple cold calls. These are working while you sleep.
And then compare the difference between, say, a business card or a brochure versus a podcast, which you did mention on your podcast.
Yeah, so I call them, one-dimensional marketing is marketing where you leave the potential client's imagination open to interpret you the way they want to interpret you. So the example of if you give somebody a business card, the natural reaction for most people, not all, but most people, is to think negatively about something they don't know or don't understand, or have a negative past perception of. So I use the example of you're a financial advisor. You give your let me get outside my industry. Let's say you're a realtor, and somebody you hand somebody a realtor card. Now every past experience of them having with of a realtor comes to light. They don't know you, right? It could be negative, it can be positive, but you can't control it. Same with a website. Same with a referral to my friend who's a realtor. They have all those negative and positive perceptions, but you leave it to them to sort through which one you are, because they don't know. And again, most people, when they don't know, they just assume negative most of the time. It's a filtering tool. That's not proper. That's not accurate. But let's keep going. Yeah. But what a podcast does is it allows you to be a whole person, like a 3D person, where they get to understand your personality, right? Flaws and all. And I think that's the most important part is when people get to know you anyway in the non-digital world, they see your flaws. Whether you know it or not, they see your flaws, and they still choose to do business with you because like perfection is just a whole person, right? You seeing the whole person and you only choosing to perceive the good. And so that's like perfection. And so a podcast allows you to be whole, amplified, and then you will attract people who are going to like you and love you anyway. By the way, like I'm pretty confident that my personality is repelling to low confidence people. They call it arrogance, but they don't understand that my confidence doesn't come from like me being impressed with myself.
Yeah.
It comes from like, I just recognize there's one power flowing through me, right? And that's where my confidence comes from. So I don't, I'm not, does that make sense? Like I'm not.
It does. You have an air of confidence about you.
Yeah.
And the, well, and I was going to go back to flaws, that flaws just basically means you're a human being, because everyone's got flaws.
Yes, that's part of the human experience.
And that if someone decides to do business with you, flaws included, just you're a human being, and
imperfection to me is beautiful, right? Because like,
Can
where's
I quote you on that?
Absolutely, but
Okay.
I mean, like where's the fun in like no error,
Yeah.
right? When if everything is known and like it's like a robot, right? I guess it's why it's like why we don't marry robots. Like error is spontaneity. Spontaneity is beautiful. Spontaneous stuff is beautiful, right? It's how we appreciate the good.
Hey, if someone wanted to reach out to Phillip Washington to talk about podcasting and the industry, or maybe if you wanted to point out their imperfections, how can they reach out to Phillip Washington?
The best way for this specific topic is Phillip at phillipwashingtonjr.com. We are currently taking coaching clients. We're only taking a few at a time because we want to make sure that we pay attention to each client. But email me there if you're interested in getting some consulting, or and me or my assistant will do an interview and see if your project is something that we can do at the current moment.
Phillip at Phillip Washington Jr. and Jr. Don't spell it out. It's Jr. Phillip at phillipwashingtonjr.com.
And Phillip is 2 L's, by the way.
There you go. And by the way, if you're listening, if you're watching, your 10 minutes are up. It's time to get back to work. We do this every week. Phillip, we'll see you next week.
See you next week.